But her mother, Regina Ventura, got on the witness stand today and was talking about how her daughter asked her for money for help because Diddy was threatening to expose her with these sex tapes of a freak off.
Due to Cassie's involvement with another rapper, Diddy Combs really threatened her mother. According to shocking new testimony, Regina Ventura was forced to make an unthinkable decision after receiving threats of sexual film and a $20,000 demand. Why would a woman put her house in danger to keep her daughter safe? This shocking tale will astound you.
Today's cross-examination focusing heavily on Ventura's allegation that Combs raped her in 2018 after they had ended their relationship, which he denies. The defense showing text messages between the former couple the day after the alleged rape, including one in which Ventura sent a heart emoji to Combs. Combs' team also trying to poke holes in Ventura's timeline.
That is not the gotcha moment that defense attorneys think it is. I mean, at the end of the day, witnesses are not great on specific dates, particularly when they go back years ago.
The defense also pointing to a text exchange between Ventura and Combs from 2012, in which she wrote, "I don't want to freak off for the last time. I want it to be the first time for the rest of our lives." At times today, the defense appeared to struggle to maintain momentum, facing frequent objections by prosecutors and regularly stopping Ventura's questioning to whisper together. Combs appeared to be actively involved, passing his lawyers notes. In a striking exchange with Combs' lawyers, Ventura saying, "Despite it all, I don't hate him. I have love for the past and what it was."
We also saw musician Dawn Richard take the stand. She said that she witnessed Combs be violent with Ventura over the course of their relationship. I just want to remind everyone that Combs denies all of the allegations against him. Back to you.
No one could have foreseen the line Diddy crossed in 2011. When Cassie's romance with rapper Kid Cudi was at its peak, Diddy reportedly lost patience. Cassie's growing infatuation with Cudi posed a threat to Diddy's relationship at the time because she was intimately tied to him both personally and professionally. The allegations imply that Diddy learned about the relationship and wasn't going to remain silent, and that he then threatened Cassie and her family in a terrible manner. According to Regina Ventura, Diddy allegedly claimed to have explicit videos of Cassie that may ruin her reputation, taking the situation to a dark and intimate level. Consider how damaging those remarks could be to a young artist's career and future, in addition to the possibility of public humiliation. Even worse, Regina said that Diddy sought $20,000 to distribute these films, threatening to do so if his demands weren't fulfilled. Was more than simply a danger to Cassie's image. It made her mother fearful. This is an unimaginable circumstance. Being a mother was a nightmare for Regina, a woman who was neither well-known nor active in the violent power struggles in Hollywood. She only wanted to protect her daughter. But she needed something far more tangible than words of comfort or emotional support, and the cost seemed insurmountable. The worst part comes next. Due to Regina's lack of $20,000, Diddy's demand was far more coercive. The danger damaged her home, finances, and sense of security, in addition to her daughter's peace. Regina must have spent hours, if not days, bearing an emotional burden. The fact that Diddy's demand forced her to take action, which was not without its own risks, to meet the $20,000 demand is even more terrible. As she weighed her options and wondered if there was any way out, she most likely mentally reenacted the threat. The story gets considerably darker at this point. Regina was determined to protect her kid, so she risked everything by taking out a home equity loan that she couldn't afford. Regina had to make the difficult choice to let these threats persist since this was more than just a money issue. It was an emotional battle. Even though it was challenging, this was just the beginning, because the risks were so great that she had to go to great measures to save her daughter. She had to decide whether to erase the heads of her family or to take a horrible step in that direction.
Very surprised by that, but Regina Ventura spoke out about an email she received from Cassie in December 2011 that said Diddy threatened to release FO tapes of Cassie after he learned that she was dating Kid Cudi. Cudi?
Cudi.
It is Cudi. Now I'm like, did I do it wrong? I constantly keep correcting myself. I was physically sick, Ventura said. I did not understand if the tape threw me. He was trying to hurt my daughter. Diddy had threatened to release one video on Christmas Day. Disgusting. She testified that Combs wanted $20,000 for the video. Ventura said Combs was angry. He had spent money on Cassie, and that she was with another person. My God. Meanwhile, he's out there with everybody in the world. We took a home equity loan, and that was the only way we could get the money. So she paid him? Oh my God. Good thing she got this money from the settlements. Easy. Combs' bookkeeper sent Regina an email with wiring instructions. She said, this is key. Combs' bookkeeper taking the money bribe, the extortion claim. This is massive. I'm going to pause.
Who handled the finances of Mr. Diddy?
Rico Law. I need a Rico Law sample. We're finally getting there.
And the thing is, anybody who has been following along at home about this whole thing, this does potentially, we don't know, they were not named. I cannot say this, but there's been a lot of looking into TriStar Entertainment, Lou Taylor and all of that, who has worked with Diddy for a very long time to do with his books. This is very interesting. And it does appear that they have the records of this, that this did happen. So that's great.
The fact that there's an email from Sean Combs' bookkeeper to buy the video, which basically is an extortion threat. I'm going to release this tape if you don't pay me. That's extortion, guys. And now a criminal enterprise because his employees are doing it. With wiring instructions, she said, so she went to the credit union and then wired the money from her and her husband's account to the bad boy account. Regina said she did it because she was scared about my daughter's safety. She said for about 4 or 5 days later, the money was returned to her account, but she did not have any communications with Combs about it. So he then gives the money back, I guess, realizing this was a big, stupid mistake. But you still did it, Diddy. Diddy did it. Not a good look, my man. She also spoke about photos she took of Cassie's injuries, which the jury saw. I'm not going to show you those guys because they look awful, but it's legit. Cassie's not a victim. Go eat shit. She also mentioned that an interaction with Mia, who I do think we're going to hear at some point, and an incident where Diddy stole Cassie's phone and she called the cops. The defense did not ask questions of Regina. That's wild. They're like, no questions.
Yeah.
We're not even engaged.
I mean, how do you even cross-examine someone when it's like, I have proof that you extorted me. I sent you the money after your bookkeeper sent me an email saying how to do it. Then you sent it back. There's no debate that this happened. I have the receipts. Are you going to yell at me?
Given such a grave danger, most people would not know what to do for Regina Ventura. The stakes couldn't have been higher because she was up against a well-known music entrepreneur who had a lot of authority and the resources to back up his threats. Not only was she a mother who was battling anxiety, but she was also a woman who was caught off guard by a situation that was well outside of her realm. And to make matters worse, the clock was running out. The price of inaction is $20,000. Regina's daughter's safety didn't have $20,000 in her bank account like most people do, but you will do everything in your power to meet a demand like this. It was too much to bear, weighing on their mental health as well as her dignity. Since she was aware of the hazards to her home and financial stability, she must have struggled for hours or maybe days with the idea of taking out a home equity loan. The foundation of her family's future, a roof over their heads, was going to be used as leverage to protect her daughter from a man who had far more wealth and power than she could ever have dreamed. Envision yourself in a bank, pen in hand, getting ready to sign documents that will result in debt, not because you made a choice or had financial difficulties, but because someone left you with no other option. Regina was sacrificing not just financial gain, but also a portion of security. It's to ignore how Diddy's claimed acts stripped her of her autonomy and left her feeling powerless, even if she was aware that she was being misled. Detesting every part of what she was being made to do, she most likely eased those threats in her mind. But knowing that signing those loan forms was her only choice must have been terrible. Emotional battle, a time of despair, rage, and determination. And this is where her behavior reveals so much about her character. Regina's mother instincts informed her she had no choice but to take on the financial risk, the stress, and the worry rather than crumble under the weight of this untenable position. She prioritized Cassie's protection over everything else, and she chose to respond in the only manner she could at the time, by cutting that $20,000 check while presumably fighting back tears. It was more than simply financial gain. It was a pious sacrifice that left Regina and her family with wounds that money could never heal. Although Regina's act of desperation speaks for itself, Cassie's reflections on her mother's decision give this unfolding story yet another perspective. Her sacrifice, however, showed how much she loved her daughter.
Very interesting. It was a little bit of a surprise because everybody's still talking about Cassie's testimony from last week, but her mother, Regina Ventura, got on the witness stand today and was talking about how her daughter asked her for money for help because Diddy was threatening to expose her with these sex tapes of a freak off. And so Regina Ventura, the mother, what she did was she got a HELOC, a home equity line of credit, on her home for $20,000 and gave that $20,000 to Diddy to try to keep him from releasing that video, that very disturbing video, I'm sure, of her daughter. And
we also heard from Cassie's mother, who testified about a payment that she wired to Diddy after Cassie told her that he was threatening to release 2 sex tapes. Cassie's mom said Diddy asked her for money around that same time to, quote, recoup money that he had spent on her daughter. The prosecutor asked, quote, why did you go to the bank and take out a $20,000 loan? Cassie's mom said, I was scared for my daughter's safety. She was asked what she needed $20,000 for, and she said, to pay Sean Combs. And when she was asked why she needed to pay Sean Combs, she testified, because he demanded it.
And I think that was something that was just, nobody expected that, because people were like, wait a minute, she gave him $20,000? And the reason for it was all because she had cheated on him, and he wanted his money that he claimed he had invested in her from, feeding her, paying her rent, and all of these types of things. That was the number that he came up with. So that was pretty cruel.
The mom was fearing that he was going to release these sex tapes.
Yes, and that's her daughter. And, she was aware, obviously, of the situation. So there's questions about that. But it's just, when it's a mother, a parent's going to do anything for their kid.
Yeah, and I think she didn't get cross-examined either, right? So she just did her testimony and she was out.
And that was
she was
it.
on very
Yes.
short time.
Exactly.
On the stand.
Anyone, let alone a young artist just beginning her career, Cassie's predicament in 2011 would have been too much to handle. At the time, she and Kid Cudi were becoming closer, but behind the scenes, it was allegedly causing a lot of friction with Diddy, who was on Bad Boy Records label. Reports state that she experienced a certain amount of influence in that professional connection, which affected her personal life as well. In addition to being a major force in the music business, Diddy had the power to make or ruin a career. When her romance, he allegedly crossed a line with Kid Cudi. The emotional toll Cassie must have been under as her world began to collapse cannot be ignored. It's hard for anyone to know that their mother had to jeopardize her financial future to protect you. And in this case, it wasn't just a personal family concern. It had several facets, including public humiliation, career threats, and a really disturbing power dynamic with someone she relied on for her work. Imagine being in her shoes, caught between a strong individual like Diddy, who is purportedly in charge, and a mother who is doing everything for you. The cards. It makes sense that Cassie would have been reluctant to speak out in public during that time in her life. Songs like Me You had already made her renowned and brought her attention outside of her music, and she was transitioning from a budding star to a more well-known figure in the music industry. But also for her character and sense of flair, yet this scandal could reverse her gains. Her reputation and ability to continue growing as an artist might have suffered greatly if the alleged tapes had been released to the public. It is crucial to remember that the music industry is notoriously cruel, especially when Cassie would have been well aware that one mistake might stigmatize a woman for the rest of her life, even if it wasn't her fault. The most astounding aspect of this, though, is Cassie's quiet. In spite of everything that supposedly occurred, she kept her head down and said nothing, at least not in the public view. She has never been one to openly talk about her personal struggles, and this alleged issue was handled in the same manner. It required resilience to handle everything without losing control or snapping, though this is to say for sure. When she felt like she had no control over her circumstances, was it a tactic to maintain control or a measure of self-preservation? Daisy's claimed acts stretched beyond her personal life to her professional life, where speaking up could have cost her everything. Cassie's quietness in the face of public humiliation further demonstrates how deeply embedded the power relationships were. Her quiet may not have been a sign of submission in this sense, but rather have been strategies and it's to help but connect her ordeal to the more serious accusations Diddy has faced over the years. This episode wasn't only personal, but it may have been part of a troubling trend.
Just go to this male escort, the Punisher, as he's known. So he was the second to last witness to testify today. Interesting what he was talking about when he said he first encountered them. He didn't really know that this was Diddy. He didn't know who Cassie Ventura was. But then all of a sudden he was all in after a little bit.
All in, Richard, and he was all in, and he was also really in some ways it seemed helping the defense, because he was talking about how much Cassie enjoyed the sex, that it seemed consensual to him. He even used the word, she gave me her consent. And then the prosecutor was like, how do you know that? And he said because of the way that she was moving, when they were intimate. But there was a lot to him, because he said he was in the business as a male entertainer, a stripper, for about 30 years, almost 30 years, and that also a sex worker. He didn't say that, but they would do private sessions like that. He said most of the times he was with Cassie. He didn't see Diddy or her inebriated or kind of like too high. He wasn't offered drugs. He said he was offered a drink, and he saw what he thought was marijuana there. But Richard, the real thing about him that was so fascinating was the longer that he talked, he was under cross-examination by Xavier Donaldson, one of the attorneys on Diddy's team, and he started to ask him about this, what's your business like? What are you doing, as a male entertainer? And he said mostly it's like bachelorette parties, we'll go and do things just to, super flirt. I'm going to keep it PG with the grandmothers and the mothers there, and the mother of the bride or whatever,
right,
to make it a fun evening. But he said some shocking things. He said he had about 8 to 15 encounters with Cassie and Diddy, having sex with Cassie, and that most of it, except for the last two times, was unprotected. There was no protection. So that was pretty interesting.
Is this just one shocking?
If you followed Sean Diddy Combs' career closely, you'll know that his name has been mentioned many times in stories that allude to a darker reality behind the glamorous public image for years. This isn't the first time he's been accused of being a man who thrives on control and uses his power as a weapon. Does Regina Ventura's testimony fit into a more significant and worrisome trend? The business has been shaken by Diddy's alleged exploitation of women. These allegations usually follow a pattern of power abuse and control, particularly against the weaker elements of society. One person is frequently associated with these themes is Kim Porter, the late mother of Diddy's 3 children. Porter is no longer with us to tell the truth, but close friends and family have hinted at a tumultuous. According to accounts, Diddy had a significant impact on her life and reportedly interfered with her personal and professional decisions. Despite her silence about the specifics, many people are curious about what was not mentioned in these reports. Furthermore, there is the instance of Misa Hilton Brim, a lady who was associated with Diddy throughout his early career and who has made references to the power us. Although her comments are unclear, they contribute to the portrayal of who, according to some reports, maintains control over all facets of his relationships, both personal and professional, and how difficult it was to find stability in a dynamic that was so lopsidedly slanted in his favor. But it's not only women who think Diddy's power has limitations. Other people in the music industry, including collaborators, have a number of musicians, including The Lox and Faith Evans, have expressed their sense of being imprisoned by Diddy's financial choices and contracts, which at first glance would seem like normal disputes within the industry. His iron grip has been described by these musicians, who were once co-workers at Bad Boy Records. Given how frequently these claims are made, his alleged concern with control is seriously put into question. The story of Regina Ventura is about but gives this pattern a scary and more intimate dimension than before. It involves threatening a family, demanding money, and using private, intimate material as a weapon. It goes beyond simply negotiating. Contracts are utilizing authority to affect an artist's career. In a story full of recurrent claims of alleged abuse, it exposes yet another upsetting dimension. And although Diddy has made a name for himself as one of the most influential personalities in the entertainment sector, cases like this cause people to reconsider the actions he did to get there. These kinds of power relations are common in the music industry, according to industry insiders, and the contrast between a young artist or outsider like Regina Ventura and a man like Diddy, who has virtually infinite resources and connections, encourages coercion. I wonder, how many more? Victims are afraid to speak up, so stories like these are kept silent. By displaying the courage necessary to face someone with such immense authority, Regina's willingness to testify gives legitimacy to this troubling conversation. What occurs might reveal whether Diddy and the industry as a whole face more serious repercussions as a result of these allegations.
There was some criticism of that raid, particularly from extended members of the Combs family, about why did they need that big show of force? Why did they need, as he testified, as Agent Gannon, Homeland Security Investigations Special Agent Gannon, who's one of the leaders of this whole special group that they have. Right. He said that they had 80 to 95 law enforcement descend on that compound in March of 2024, and he said,
that day.
"Yeah, you can't. Nobody can forget it." And he said the reason was because they had, their intel basically had let them know there was security there, there was armed security there. It was a very complex, They have of course, they have the blueprint and the schematics of the property, but he said they wanted to make sure that there was no danger to anybody, so they timed the raid. This was interesting. He testified they had a search warrant, but the search warrant, Richard, was. Are you okay?
Yes.
Okay. The search. We're on the streets. What can
yeah, we're on the
and we're live. And we're live.
live.
That's why I have my sneakers on.
That'll go.
You got the fancy. You got the fancy.
I have
shoes.
my shoes. I know. I should put sneakers.
You got your fancy shoes. Anyway, he So he was basically talking about the Homeland Security, the investigations, what they were doing. He said that usually they do these raids at about 6 o'clock in the morning. They did this one at 3:40 in the afternoon that day because he said they wanted to make sure that most of the people in the compound, were out of there at the time that they went in. I thought that was interesting. And what they found, Richard, well, they show the closet, and there's a closet. First of all, the property is gorgeous. It's I've been to Star Island, not there, but been to Star Island, and it's spectacular. It's just like one of those amazing places. So they open the door. The evidence photo shows this closet in one of the rooms. There's shelves on it, so I'm like looking at it, and I'm like going, "What is this? Like Sean John T-shirts or package of what is this?" And he describes what's in there. He describes high heels, 7-inch high platform high heels, like dozens and dozens of them. Yeah. He describes lingerie, like freak off essentials, and then he says there were also assembly parts for guns. And so under questioning about the parts, he says. This is the upper receiver. This is the lower receiver. These are for AR-15 semi-automatic rifles. There were bullets that were there. There was ammunition. And then as the agent testified, that it's very simple to put it together. You put the two upper with the lower. There's a pin that you insert, and then you insert the magazine or pop the clip in, and then it's ready to go. So there was a lot of concern about that. People were kind of gasping, honestly. When they heard that, but the number of things, and then of course there was baby oil they found, there was lubricant, all of these items from the freak off that we have.
8 Duty's attorneys are overworked. His lead attorney, Mark Agnillo, a former top federal prosecutor, is adept at casting doubt on their assertion that it wasn't sex. Drug misuse, emotional breakdowns, and poor decision-making were hallmarks of the toxic, dysfunctional relationship that was trafficking. But not unlawful behavior. And strangely, some of the prosecution's own witnesses, including the Punisher, may have truly backed up that assertion, and the jury has been observant, attentive, and engaged. Aaron Subramanian, a judge, has to keep things going. They did something unusual, shortened lunches, followed a rigid schedule, and even offered breakfast every day, with ease. It's a small matter, but in circumstances such as this, every second matters. Therefore, it's important to remember that we're still. The prosecution has taken the first steps in this case, but the defense hasn't even played its hand, yet. What happens when the defense calls its witnesses may be different from what we've heard thus far. What would occur if what would happen if more disturbing evidence or more witnesses came to light in the coming days? Diddy appears on stage. Himself isn't just about one person, It's about an industry where abuse can be unreported by celebrities and victims can be hushed by power.
Yeah, and I think everybody appreciates, there's still a sense of, at this point in the trial, of mutual respect on both sides. Because remember, Diddy's lead attorney, Mark Agnifilo, he's a former prosecutor and one of the top prosecutors in this very district, in the Southern District here of New York. So he's very familiar with how the courts operate. Diddy's defense team, they're trying to do as much as they can. They did score points, so the witness, that the male sex worker was Shay McCrae, Hayes, or whatever.
Sheree Hayes.
Sheree Hayes, thank you.
Go.
I'm close.
Yeah.
He was basically talking about how Cassie seemed to be enjoying the sex with him on a professional level, and that really doesn't.
Does that really help?
Yeah, and
prosecution.
I think the thing we have to remember, a couple things. I think we have to remember that, everybody is innocent until they're proven guilty, because there's been such an unprecedented barrage of publicity about this case and Diddy, and the most salacious things are the things that are the biggest headlines. And I don't want us to miss the building up of the case, of what they have to prove, step by step. And I think that's the whole thing. Is like, it's not about whether, what your idea or anybody's idea of sex trafficking is. It's about, what does the law say? What are the requirements, point for point, that they need to prove? And that's what the jury, and the jury has been seeming very interested. They're very involved, paying attention. So we'll see.
There's a lot to prove,
but
there's still a very long way to go. I mean, we have to remind everyone, and if you haven't been following this, you're only like, a week and a half in to when the actual opening statements to the first witnesses being called. So there's so much more. No one at this point could say this is a slam dunk case or it's not.
No, and also too, remember, all the witnesses that they're calling now, excuse me, the pollen. All the witnesses that are calling now are witnesses that are being brought by the prosecution. So the prosecution is bringing these people in to try to prove their case. That's why the sex worker was such a surprise today, that he was seemed to be supporting them, but he was under oath. He had to say what was the truth. So then remember, we're still going to hear. We haven't heard the defense case yet, which they kind of have hinted at, saying that it's going to be, domestic abuse, not sex trafficking, drug use, drug abuse, a lot of emotional issues due to the drug abuse and that type of thing. But we haven't heard their case. We don't know who they're going to call.
Plans for Diddy, Cassie, and Regina Ventura's future. If these allegations prompt more investigation, Diddy may suffer disastrous repercussions. There are serious legal and financial repercussions associated with allegations of extortion threats and the misuse of personal data, especially in more testimonies may result from a single example like this, since people may feel more at ease. Coming forward, how much damage his reputation will sustain is the more important question. Even the most carefully guarded legacies can be ruined by scandals like this one, even though Diddy has spent decades establishing an empire in his name. Has happened before in the sector. Although the exact course of events is uncertain, public's sentiment changes, endorsements stall, corporate agreements fail, and the once unstoppable power begins to wane. Will Regina's testimony lead to legal action even though it is damning? Are there any more witnesses, pieces of evidence, or assertions that are commonly made in well-known cases? It has a cascading effect if someone else finds something. The pressure could rise and the topic could spread if someone who might have been under Diddy's influence decides to come forward. People want to know if this incident is an indication of a longer-standing, more widespread issue, or if it is an isolated incident. Particularly in the Me Too era, the public's appetite for accountability has significantly changed. And in recent years, Cassie has spoken about empowerment and spreading a message of recovery and development. But this dark period of her life has come back to the fore in a way that exposes old scars. It is extremely upsetting to realize that her mother put everything on the line, including her life, her home, and her financial stability, to shield her from Diddy's claimed threats. More than ever, cases against well-known people are being closely examined. How does this insight affect their current relationship? Does it accentuate their enduring intimacy, or does it draw attention to it more generally? Cassie's quiet for a significant amount of this period may demonstrate the extent of Diddy's purported power over her life and career at the time, and the industry's response may set a significant precedent. Will other musicians and professionals condemn Diddy, or will they It's a test of how far the music industry has gone in addressing power disparities for fans, and a chance to call for accountability of the sort that forces people to confront upsetting realities about the systems that put power ahead of justice. Relationships in a field still controlled by gatekeepers. Regina's courageous recent testimony has already sparked conversations about the abuse of power in Hollywood. Whether or not more people are willing to back up her assertions could determine the following steps. One has to wonder what additional stories might be out there just waiting to be told as this one gets more and more attention. It takes a specific type of courage to speak out against someone like Diddy, a man whose impact goes well beyond music. The story of Regina Ventura serves as a reminder of the risks involved when her story highlights the invisible sacrifices made to protect loved ones and forces us to consider the true cost of silence. One question remains as these claims progress. How many more voices will be silenced due to manipulation or fear? Bring about a greater reckoning, since every story like this improves the planet.